Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. This is Rayana and Inga in Performance Management World.
Hi, Inga. Good morning to you.
Good morning. So let's start with introductions. I'm Inga Azara. I'm a personal brand development, leadership development, and business development mentor and business partner. And one of my passion areas to focus on is performance management, obviously, helping leaders and helping employees and as well business owners and founders to really set the goals in the right way, set the strategy in the right way, and engage people through performance management to skyrocket it all. So to make sure that they achieve the goals and aspirations and exceed them. And one of the best ways is through engagement, through performance management.
Okay, over to me. So I'm going to apologize to our viewers first of all. I'm recovering from a very bad cold, so I tend to have these coughing fits. If I do, I might just step out and have Inga continue, and then I'll come back. I don't want to disturb everyone. So yeah, let's go with introduction of myself. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you find yourself in the world today. My name is Rehana Jaino, and I'm from Constantia Consulting. I provide HR services to those businesses who do not need a full-time HR person on site. And it's predominantly to small, medium enterprises. But having said that, I also do work for corporates. And currently, I'm doing work for about three corporates where I'm doing project work for them. So it's anything and everything looking at in terms of once you've recruited your person, how do you retain, motivate, and engage them? Because that's quite important. Once you found somebody to work for you, you want to keep them. You want to retain and not retrain, as I normally say, because that becomes an expensive exercise. And I think the topic that Inga and myself have been talking about over a few weeks now, and the workshop that we'll be delivering on the 5th December, is one of the tools you can use to look at in terms of how can you motivate, retain, and engage your employees. So Inga, let's delve a little bit more into performance management and reviews and how managers can use it effectively in the workplace.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rihanna. And since we started doing these live conversations and sharing more about performance management and about how to engage and how to manage and how to develop employees, one of the questions we have been receiving constantly is, so, okay, yeah, this is great. This is great tool. How to do it? How do you actually learn performance management? Is the question. Like, what's the best way? And as we discussed with Rihanna previously and before this session, there are multiple ways how to learn, and each of us is different and learns in different ways.
Yeah.
However, today we will share what are the ways to learn performance management, and you can decide yourself which way is most suitable for you. And sometimes it's the combination on how we learn, and sometimes it depends from the stage where we are in our leadership journey, how experienced we are and how mature we are as leaders. And sometimes it's a refreshment of the approaches and just rethinking what actually in this period of time works best for each of us. So one of the kind of startup or basic ways how to learn it, it's just by doing it, right? Just start doing it, start having conversations with your employees, discuss the goals, discuss what they are focusing on, give them some feedback, and it's kind of on the job training.
Mm-hmm.
And the plus side of this is that it's actually real, it's happening, and you make mistakes, which is important to do, that you make some mistakes so you can reflect and gain some insights. The challenge is, I see that you're not always sure whether you're doing the right things, and you're not sure whether you have the right tools to apply, and how is it working. What do you think about that, Brianna?
No, I agree fully with you. For me, and I learn best that way, is on the job training. And yes, I do know I'm going to be making mistakes. But what's nice about it, if you show to your employees you're vulnerable, and you show to them, you're trying to do your best and that you're learning, they build up a level of trust with you. And I would say majority of them, and this is me looking at the glass being half full, but I think majority of them would want you to do good and do well. Yes, you'll have the one or two waiting for you to fall flat on your face, but not everybody is like that. And if you tell them, um, we're going to sit down and look at your performance objectives, or as I call it, milestones, and it's going to be a process for both of us. Let's see how we can help each other, and I'm also learning along the way. They will know that the two of you are helping each other along the way. So for me, that's what's worked in the past, and I've been lucky that I have had employees when I went into my first line manager job, that was willing to help me through the process, and that's how I've learned. But another way which I've learned is the one which we will be doing is through workshops.
Hmm.
For me, I need something where we have learned something to go and apply it. And what's nice about it is you do it within a safe environment. You do it in an environment where people are in a similar situation like you, they have the same fears like you, and so you're all exactly in the same boat, and so you can learn from each other and make mistakes within a safe environment. Ironically enough, in the week I did a lunch and learn session for one of my clients to the employees, and it is related to performance management, and it was how do I as an employee give upward feedback to my manager, because as I explained to them, managers are also humans, and they would also want feedback on their development and how they're progressing as a line manager.
Absolutely.
And in that session I also created a scenario where they could practice on each other, one giving feedback, one receiving feedback, the other one being an observer, and then we spoke about the experience that they went through. And I stressed to them, I said, yes, this is an artificial environment, but it's a safe environment. And comes back to what you then said, all that you can do is that once you step outside of this room, is you go and practice it and go and do it. Um, and people learn differently, as you said. So yes, there are various ways. Some people prefer to take up a book, go and read in terms of what the steps are, and then follow it that way. There is no right or wrong for me in this process. Another way you can do it is to go and speak to an experienced hiring manager who is really good at doing this, and model them. Look at
Hmm.
what they do well, how do they do it, ask permission if you could sit in on a session and see what they do. Obviously, get permission from the employee side as well when you do that. So there are various ways that you can go learn and see how you can implement this.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that one of the best ways, most valuable ways how you have learned is through workshops, through practical work.
Mm, mm,
Actually, that very much resonated with my experience as well. As when I started more than 25 years ago as a business leader, as HR leader, of course, I read a lot of books, I studied, I accomplished, finished
yeah.
courses. However, the best and the most valuable way how I learned performance management was through the workshops. As in the workshop environment, as you mentioned, it's quite safe container,
Mm,
if I can say so, and it's together with like-minded or
mm,
who are
mm,
also eager to learn and share. And one of the benefits of the many benefits of taking part in workshop is that you learn from other people's experience. You learn from their questions, from their cases, and from their kind of mistakes that they have made. And it's such a blended and consolidated learning. It's like skyrocketing or fast tracking your learning, not just learning from your experience and through your perspective, but seeing and hearing and experiencing other people's perspectives. And it's the guided way that experienced facilitator shares the framework and the tools, and you get to experiment with these tools, and you get to try it out, how it works,
Mm-hmm.
and feel which tool is most convenient for you, as there are plenty of tools in the performance management toolbox. It's kind of picking and choosing whichever suits your leadership style and whichever will suit your team members and would work for them. It's like setting milestones, goals, or aspirations, or however we call it.
Mm-hmm.
There are different ways how to do it, and you choose from knowing that there are different ways and trying out different ways. You choose the way that works for you and for your team. So
Yeah.
through the workshops, it's absolutely fantastic way to learn. And what I have heard facilitating these performance management workshops in different countries, actually from different nationalities and different environments where leaders come from. After the workshop, they say they've learned a lot. They discovered that there are many more perspectives to managing performance. And also, one of the kind of outcomes is that they want their employees to take part or go through these and experience these tools and feedback and other things as well, as they feel so great knowing it all. And they feel so equipped that they kind of want the best for their team as well. And they say, you know what? I want this for my team as well. And I think you mentioned, Rihanna, once that you did a workshop also for employees to teach them how to ask feedback, how to request feedback, how to give feedback to leaders as
Yeah.
they want it. But until we don't share it with them and help them practice and help them know how to do it, then they are kind of sometimes reluctant or not sure whether they can do it.
Exactly. And it comes to mind because I was one of the lucky few ones to get an email in my inbox last week, very much on the spur of the moment. I follow a gentleman by the name of Simon Sinek. Now, for those of you who don't know him, he wrote a book called What is Your Why? And Leaders Eat Last. And
Mm,
he's got another one out now. I think it's something around the Infinity Game. But he's got a mindset tour in sometime next year. He, however, had a session prior to this in London, and I got a feeling this must have been very much on the spur of the moment that he was in London and decided he's going to have a session, and so had a very small, intimate session in London. About, I would say, 30 to 40 of us in the room. It's so much. I'm sure it was smaller than that. And something that struck me in the session, because he presented and then us as audience could ask him questions as well, which was really nice. And he talked about human resources and he talked about leaders, and things that are really important for a leader would be relationships, but not only for a leader, but for everyone. And we need to look at building those relationships with people, with like minded people.
mm,
And so it comes back to in terms of who can support you through this process, who can help you in terms of if I get stuck, who can I pick up a phone to and say, how would you handle the situation? Or what would you do? I've got this difficult employee I need this discussion with. What advice can you give me?
mm,
And he said, we should look at building up those relationships early on in the process and not only go to people when we need help at that moment in time. And then he gave us an invitation in that session to say, once I'm done here, see who you can connect with in the room. See where you can start building on those relationships, and you never know when you're going to need each other in the future. And ironically enough, two ladies and I have connected.
mhm.
Um, really, really good. One of them is such a good action taker. She, on the spur of the moment, said, "Oh, can I video you and just ask you a question?" And he said yes, and she did it. Um, but the point I'm coming back to is that, for example, we're going to be delivering a workshop. And in that workshop, it's a good time for people then to connect with others who's in a similar situation to them.
Mm,
And you never know where that networking leads to. And then
absolutely.
from there, relationships are built. And those are people that you can then call on to say, can you help me? Or could we meet up for coffee and could we discuss this? And that's also a way in terms of learning from each other. So there's many aspects that you can take away from doing things either on your own in a workshop, building relationships with people, but looking for where you can find like-minded people who has the same goals as you from that process.
Absolutely, as not everyone has an HR business partner in their kind of organization, or not everyone has a great HR business partner in their organization that they can talk to and who will understand their issues and challenges and will be a sounding board and great supporter in their development. So it's really absolutely a fantastic way of connecting with people when you are together in an environment where everybody has come with similar kind of focus and similar needs, similar challenge, and then you can connect and really build relationships and help each other later on with talking through some challenges and sharing and learning.
Yes.
One of the ways how to learn, you mentioned, Rihanna, reading books. I've read loads of books as well, and it helps with kind of understanding performance management, as example, in theory. One of the I'll show the listeners one of the favorite books I have is Abolishing Performance Appraisals. As I'm kind of a rebel type of person. I don't like traditional ways, and I don't like boring ways of doing things. I like kind of to challenge the traditional perspective and traditional approach, and make sure that whatever we do is refreshing, is impactful, is valuable, is commercial, is serving the purpose, and we're not just doing it for the sake of doing, but we are doing it to make sure it fits the organization, the team, the leader, and that we achieve the outcomes that we are aiming for.
No, I agree fully with you on that, Inga. I think similar like you, I sometimes question, is there a place for performance appraisal in today's working world? Yes, we do need a way in terms of measuring whether people are achieving what they're doing, but is it the old traditional method in terms of the way we know about performance appraisals? And can't we do things a little bit differently? I call it making slightly more fun, where your employees want to engage with you, that they want to achieve those objectives that both of you set together, and not feel this dread in their tummy when they're going to go into the discussion with you. And it comes back to what we were talking about previously as well, is that it's a communication tool. It's a tool to open up that doors for communicating with each other, talking to each other. And if you need advice, to get advice at that moment in time. If you think you have not done well on a task, to bring it out open in the room immediately and address it, and not wait for the time when it becomes to your performance review, or you having your performance review with your employee, because it looks more like a stick, and that's when people start dreading this term of performance appraisals and performance reviews. So I'm fully with you on that track of, in terms of how do we abolish the traditional ways of doing performance reviews. Let's look at in terms of how we can make it engaging, fun, also in terms of a tool where people can talk to each other.
Absolutely.
So I think by talking to each other, listening to each other's views, it's a way of getting things out in the open.
Yeah, with different with kind of startups, with mid-sized companies, with mature and huge corporate companies, I see different kind of development phase of performance management culture. For example, in corporate companies where performance appraisals have been there since ages ago, people are kind of tired and bored and reluctant to performance management. When they hear goal setting or planning or performance management or performance appraisal, they're kind of shivering and they're saying, no, again, this time of the year
Yeah,
has come. So yes, we need to think about how to refresh it and how to make it more engaging, like a tool of communication. Uh,
exactly.
on the other side of the journey, startups and companies who have just grown to the size that they actually start to feel that there is
Mm,
lack of performance culture or performance conversations. They soak it all in. They kind of they want to learn because they don't have this experience of performance management, of setting the milestones, achieving, focusing, engaging, having communication. They have been so focused on setting up the company,
mhm.
delivering, creating products, creating systems, creating processes, and attracting investments and all the other good things that they kind of, at some point in their developments, they feel confused that why things start not to happen, and
Yeah.
their performance management comes into play. That we do need to engage everyone in organization in thinking and looking at in the way of where we want to get to in terms of strategy, in terms of milestones that we want to achieve, and how each of employees is contributing in their own
Mhm.
to achieve what the company is aiming to, and what are
Yeah.
the tools and ways of communicating and measuring that can help get there.
No, I agree fully with you. And it comes to mind, there's one client I'm working currently with, and I do numerous types of projects for them. However, I know how the performance management system works in the organization, and they apply it the way we talk about it being applied. So, yes, they know that it's used to decide what bonus the employee is going to be getting, because the bonuses are discretionary and they link it to that. But at the end of the time, when it comes to the discussion to decide what that final performance review is going to be looking like, they know already, both employer and employee, because they've had these discussions throughout the year.
Hmm.
And they set milestones in terms of things people will be working on in their daily jobs. Yes, it's related to the vision and mission in terms of what the company wants to achieve, but it's related to what they are doing, so that when they do have the discussions with each other, they know what they're referring back to. So I've seen it work. I've seen where it's worked effectively from that perspective. And I know I'm going to get companies who's going to say, but it works perfectly for us the way we're doing it from a traditional point of view. I'm not saying it's wrong. All I'm saying is there a better way that you can do it? And how would your employees prefer you doing it as well? You want to take the fear out of the whole thing when you talk about it's your annual time
Hmm.
reviews. And if you can do it slightly differently, look at implementing it. And it means you probably just have to change one or two small steps. It doesn't mean you've got to change your whole process. And
Absolutely.
and sometimes to those other companies, oh, but everybody else does it that way. And for me, it's like, so what? Why can't you be the leader of change and let other companies see what you're doing, and you become a role model for them and they follow?
Hmm.
So there's various ways of looking at it.
Be the icebreakers. One really important thing that you mentioned, Rihanna, that resonated is ask your employees how they want it to be done. As sometimes, if we don't have um, too many tools in our toolbox on how to have these conversations and how to structure them and how to lead them and what kind of questions to ask, then we kind of stick to one or two approaches.
Mm,
It might not work for your employees. It might work for you. You think so, but if it doesn't work for your employees, then actually the tool or the approach or framework doesn't really work. So when you learn many different tools on how to manage performance and how to make sure that your employees are aware, engaged, and motivated, inspired, and delivering, when you have plenty of tools in your toolbox, then you feel more confident to choose and to play with different tools and to apply different tools and to ask for feedback, like is it working for you, and ask your employees, does it work, does it not, how do you want to have it, as nowadays it's not anymore employers' market, it's employees' markets, that we need to make sure that if we have attracted and we have hired the best employees from the market to help us achieve the goals, then we need to make sure that we engage them in the right way. We set the milestones or the strategy in the right way and communicate it, that they are aware, they are engaged, they are inspired, and we communicate in the right way with them so they feel valued and they want to contribute.
Exactly, and it's a way of retaining them. Because in this lunch and learn session I had in the week with one of my clients, one of the questions I asked the employees, what stops you from giving feedback to your manager? And we discussed this. And what was for me, quite almost a light bulb moment, which seems to be the theme for a lot of people, is that I give feedback, but they don't listen anyway. Nothing happens with the information. And I took it back to employee engagement surveys. You ask your employees to give you feedback, but you don't do anything with it. It's exactly the same with, having discussions around performance management, setting the milestones. When your employee give you feedback in terms of what they think, what some of the milestones should be, and how they think it should be measured, listen to what they're saying. Because it could be that they're providing valuable information and there is another way of doing things than the way we as leaders think it should be done. Ultimately, they're the ones that's doing the job. They know how it can be measured better than what we think it should be measured, etc. So I think it's critical. Listen to what our employees tell us as leaders. And yes, if we can implement it, let's implement it. If we can't, then explain why it cannot be done and what another solution to it could be. Just don't cut off the conversation there and leave it as is, because that's when you lose your employee completely through the whole process and they don't see then the performance review as a credible process.
And that's how engaged and motivated employees who have joined the company to really achieve what they are aiming, what company wants them to achieve, and they're energized and passionate and driven. And that is how these engaged employees become disengaged, that they feel that they are not listened to, their opinion is not taken into account to, they don't have feedback on their ideas and on their contribution. And then step by step and day by day, they become less and less engaged. And that's our task as leaders, is to make sure to refresh it and to make sure that we don't lose this engagement of our best employees. In terms of feedback, you mentioned feedback as one of the great communication tools or examples. I'd like to ask feedback from everyone who is listening now or will be listening to replay. Please, if you have any questions or if you have any challenge regarding performance management, you can comment it under this video, or you can PM Rihanna or me directly if you wanted to, and express any feedback of these live sessions. Is it helpful? Is it not? What do you want to hear more about? And if you have any questions regarding performance management or feedback or tools or the workshop, upcoming workshop, which will be 5th of December in central London. If any questions, any feedback, please let's communicate. Write it under this video or send directly to one of us. Definitely pick it up and make sure that if there will be a question that's valuable for wider audience, we will discuss it in the next week's Facebook Live. And in this way, we have captured your feedback and we have taken that into account to talk about the questions you ask and the challenges you have in the next following Facebook Live. So this is really helpful. And if you see that this video, these insights, this conversation could be valuable for your network, for your friends or acquaintances, then please do comment, like, or share it, as our purpose and our kind of aspiration is to share as much as possible insights, experience, and tips and tricks how to excel at performance management, so everyone could benefit from our combined experience.
Yeah. No, I fully agree with you, Inga, on that. And feedback is important to us as well. As much as we're talking about um, leaders getting feedback, us as presenters need feedback as well. And we would then know also in terms of what are the things our listeners want to talk about and what are the things that they want to develop further in. And I'm glad to say I think we do listen to what they say, and we have been trying to incorporate that into the
Hmm.
discussions we've been having on a weekly basis.
Yes. So, summarize today's conversation on what are the best ways of learning how to manage performance. You can do it on the job training. You can ask your HR department, or if you have one, or if they're great at it. You can read a book. You can attend training, which is classroom training, just listening and writing notes. You can listen to podcasts and do online training and educate yourself. You can talk to a colleague, to experienced one who does it, and exchange experiences and opinions. And of course, you can also join the workshop, which I think is the most impactful, but it depends. We'll learn in different ways. However, I think workshop is the most impactful way that you get the theory, you get the frameworks, you get the tools, you get to try it out, you get to hear what others are asking and what challenges they are having. You get to ask your questions and get them answered, and you can kind of challenge yourself and gain the insights from the teamwork, from the group work as well. And you can build relationships and build friendships in these workshops and build connection with the facilitators. And one of these is coming up 5th of December in central London. I will post the link to this
Mhm.
workshop under this video so you can explore and decide whether that's the right time and whether that's the right format for you. And if yes, then please join and let's rock it together.
Yes, and just to add on to what Inga is saying, so we're having the workshop on the 5th of December in central London, and we're going to be providing you with tools that you can take immediately back into the workplace. But I think more important, we're going to try and make it fun, and we're going to have a safe environment in terms of where we can learn from each other and practice with each other so that you feel more confident when you walk out of the workshop that day to go and try some of these tools we're going to be sharing with you.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you, Anna, for today's conversation and speak again next week.
Yes, thank you, Inga. Have a good weekend. And to our viewers, have a good weekend as well. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Have a good weekend, all.